Hello everybody, my name is Kai Wehner. I work as Technology Evangelist for TIBCO, and today I want to introduce to you blockchain and why it might be the next big thing for middleware. The agenda looks like the following for the around next 30 minutes. I will first talk a little bit about the motivation and use cases behind blockchain, so you do not need any previous knowledge about it. Then I will discuss the technical concepts and frameworks available and show you a few cloud services which offer blockchain as a service. And then finally, I will focus on blockchain and middleware, how they are related and why middleware is a key for success for blockchain projects. Let's begin with the motivation and use cases for blockchain. And here the key thing in the beginning is to discuss with you that Bitcoin is really just the tip of the iceberg. So you might heard of blockchain just because of Bitcoin, which is a cryptocurrency, and blockchain is used under the hood of Bitcoin. And you might also watch this 5-minute video afterwards, which explains this in a little bit more detail. But key really is that Bitcoin is just one cryptocurrency implementation which leverages Bitcoin. It's just the tip of the iceberg. As you can see here, there are many Bitcoin alternatives on the market available. These are also called altcoins in short. However, it's important to understand that only a few of them really had huge market capitalizations, as you can hear on this slide. And therefore, Bitcoin is only one of them. It's the most important one, but there are many more. And besides that, and that's even more important for this session here, it's not about Bitcoin or financial payments, and altcoin is not blockchain. So blockchain is a layer under the hood of a cryptocurrency. And blockchain is all around the transfer of assets within a business network. So you can do many more things than just financial payments via Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency. It goes far beyond financial transactions. Therefore, I want to show you a few other examples here, but it's really an unlimited possibilities on the market. The first example is Lassos, which is ride sharing for collaborative transportation. So you can think about Uber, but without Uber as the middleman, where you have to pay around 20% of fees when you get a car transfer by Uber. Another example is Open Bazaar, and here you can open your own shop without a company like eBay or Amazon as intermediary. So it's similar to the Lassos and Uber story. So you can do the same as eBay and Amazon, create your own shop, but you do not have them as expensive middlemen, where you have to pay around 15 or 20% for every item you sell. Different use case is SKU chain, which is some kind of next generation supply chain management. Here you can work together with different partners and implement smart blockchains and smart contracts to work together automatically. Again, this highly automates all these things and still allows high security, even if you work together with other partners. And you still, again, don't need another intermediary or middleman for working together with your partners. And finally, as example, it's a more general one, is the Internet of Things and smart contracts. So this is where I really see the next big thing after financial use cases for blockchain, because here it's really a very good example how you can work together with partners to implement smart contracts. This means that you and your partners have different intelligent devices, which in the end are the Internet of Things, that can be mobile devices or anything else with a sensor or connected to the web, to the internet. And then you can implement smart contracts so that they can work together automatically. These were just a few examples. There's many more if you Google for use cases about blockchain. So to summarize the motivation, the key really is to innovate and provide new services and distributed applications with blockchains, which were not possible until now in this way. because now you can easily implement smart contracts, which is really one of the key concepts behind blockchain. And with that, you can cut out the either expensive and or slow middleman, which is existing in many industry scenarios. And that can really be a huge improvement for your business processes and for your costs and revenue. So today, and also what the use cases I showed you, that's really just scratching the surface of possible use cases. We can't really imagine yet what you or your company or your customers could do with blockchain. This is very similar to the open API initiatives we see a lot on the market, where you use API management and expose your APIs to partners and the public. But I think with blockchain it's even more extreme, because it's a much more new concept with smart contracts than just exposing your open APIs. So it's really about huge innovations in the market. One more use case example of how blockchain can really disrupt existing businesses, and not just in banks. And that's when you use airlines to fly. And in some countries you can do insurances. If your flight is late, you get a compensation for the delay or if it's cancelled. And in other countries, especially in Europe, you even have the right to get money by your airline. So if your flight is 3 hours or more late or it's cancelled, you have the right to get up to 600 euro as compensation per person for that. And actually you don't have to do much for that, you just have to request it. However, today this is not done automatically, so you have to request it for the airline, and depending on the airline you even have to go to a lawyer to get this compensation. And think about here, if you use smart contracts and blockchain for that, this all could be automated with smart contracts. Of course, this would have a negative impact on the airlines, because they would pay a lot more compensations to everybody. Right now, almost nobody is doing this because it's too much effort and nobody wants to do it, and many think it's risky, but it is not. And therefore, this would really change the complete market of airlines. They have to pay a lot more money if blockchain and smart contracts would be used here in this process. I think this is another nice example where smart contracts could really help the end user. After this motivation, let's take a deeper look at the technical concepts and frameworks behind Bitcoin and blockchain under the hood even more. So what is a blockchain? A blockchain is a protocol and ledger for building an immutable historical record of transactions. And this means in the end it's an implementation of a ledger. And ledgers record transactions, and they are passing values from owner to owner. And these values are assets in the end. So the transactions are always time-based with a timestamp, and once a transaction is recorded, you cannot alter it. And you need to be able to detect if your ledger has been altered. So that's basically what a blockchain is. That's an implementation of a ledger. And from a technology perspective, it has many different characteristics, which I want to discuss now. But it's important to understand that blockchain actually is no new technology. It's just lots of it which are existing already, combined in a new way. So let's take a look at the key characteristics of blockchain. The first one is that a blockchain is a data structure called blockchain, which serves as the backend database. So in the end, blockchain is a database, and it leverages cryptographic tokens. That can be, for example, the Bitcoin, or it can be the Ether for Ethereum, which I will discuss later. So in the end, it's one kind of different token which you use. And that's very important part. A blockchain is a peer-to-peer network for discovery and communication. So it's really distributed and used on different instances of servers or machines. Another important point, a blockchain uses a consensus formation algorithm. That means that different servers or instances discuss and decide if a transaction is valid or not. So Bitcoin, for example, here uses mining as consensus, which is very compute intensive. And just as note here, most other blockchain implementations, especially in business use cases in your enterprises with partners, do not use this, but use other consensus algorithms. And the last main characteristic is that a virtual machine enables programmable money in Bitcoin, and decentralized applications in Ethereum is key. So that means that basically on top of the blockchain framework, you implement your decentralized applications, which can be Bitcoin or anything else which you want to use as asset. And this combination is really the new innovation of blockchain. It's not one new technology, but it's many different ones combined in a new way. So here on the left, you see one example of a blockchain deployment in a shared ledger. If you take a look here at the number one client can do a transaction, and this is implemented via an SDK or API in any language like Java or Ruby or Go or whatever is supported by the blockchain framework. And then the peers confirm this transaction or order which you want to do. And therefore, the ledger is then also replicated. And this is really where you see that all this is distributed, so different application instances and servers around the blockchain network. And this also ensures the consensus algorithm, and then it's secure and stored on many different servers. That's basically how a blockchain deployment looks like, and you can use that for any kind of use case. And Bitcoin, as I said, was just the first example of this. And there is a variety of different blockchain technologies available. They have a lot of different characteristics. So for example, they can really be public, like the Bitcoin example, or they can be just private within your enterprise, or if you want to work together with your partners, for example, in the supply chain example, or when you want to use Internet of Things together with partners. There are a lot which are adopted right now. Some are very new and not really mature, and some blockchain technologies are already dead again, because this is a very new market right now. There are other different characteristics like the speed which you want to need to do the consensus, like security information and how you share that and secure it, and a lot of other characteristics. So you have to think about which blockchain framework is the right for you and do a little bit of research for that. When I researched for that, I also found out that there is not really a standard yet for blockchain, but there are already some consortiums which are beginning in the process of creating standards. On the left, you see the R3 consortium, which is built especially by financial institutions, and over 50 of the world's leading institutions are included here. And they try out to standardize the kind of blockchain and payment via Bitcoin and so on. On the right side, a little bit of other interesting alliance for smart contracts. They try to standard the smart contract definition, which is in the end the processes implemented with Bitcoin. And we will see in the future how that works out and when we finally will get some kind of standardization of parts of blockchain at least. As I said, right now there are different blockchain frameworks available, and I found out that especially two of these frameworks are very relevant on the market right now. The first one is Hyperledger, which is an open source project. As you can see on the left, you can find it on GitHub. And on the right side, you can see it has many different components which are important for blockchain implementations. That's in the end what I also discussed with you and the characteristics. It's about a consensus manager, a distributed ledger, a peer-to-peer protocol, identity management, security, and so on. And this basically is really a low-level framework which you can leverage to implement your own blockchain solution and blockchain platform. The second blockchain implementation which I found on the market, which is used a lot, is Ethereum. Ethereum is more like a platform. It's not just a framework like Hyperledger, it's more a platform ready to be used by you for implementing your application. Ethereum is mostly supported by Consensus, which is the company behind it. And as I said, you can go to the website and in the end start building your applications on that platform. If you want to compare Hyperledger and Ethereum, I like to understand it, compare it in this way, but I have to say it's not 100% true, but I like the comparison to understand it better. And how I compare it is that Hyperledger is more like an infrastructure as a service. So for example, if you use Amazon EC2 instances in the public cloud, or if you create an own an own private cloud infrastructure with OpenStack on premise. And on the other side, Ethereum is more like a platform as a service, for example, Cloud Foundry or OpenShift, where you can simply start building your platform application based on this solution. So that's I think it makes sense to compare it a little bit. This was the technical concepts and framework overview. And now let's take a look at blockchain as a services available as cloud offerings. Here, what I found out in my research is that especially IBM and Microsoft are taking a leading role here. They are investing a lot into blockchain cloud platforms, and they leverage open technologies and frameworks. I think this is a general trend to, of course, build commercial solutions and cloud services, but based on open technologies and frameworks. And both of them, IBM and Microsoft, of course, offer these blockchain offerings with integration into their other cloud services. So for example, IBM integrates it with Watson and Microsoft with some other Azure analytics services and so on. Let's take a little bit closer look into these services. IBM offers blockchain on Bluemix, which is their cloud service and huge offering. And what they do, and that's the most important information here on the upper and the down right, is that they leverage the Hyperledger project, which I discussed before, right? So IBM here really leverages Hyperledger, and therefore you have the basic framework implementation of Hyperledger. You can spin it up in a minute and play around with that to create your own platform of blockchain and create your application on top of that. There's a few examples available, so you can simply play around without doing much in the beginning. And there's also some nice tooling, as you can see on the left side, to monitor your blockchains and to configure it. On the right side, that's what I also like a lot, you have also a REST interface, and you can easily test your APIs and blockchain with Swagger, which is, I would say, the de facto standard for REST APIs to document and test them. And that you can also leverage with your own tools to apply Swagger REST interfaces with your own technologies to interact with this blockchain. On the other side, we have Microsoft. They offer blockchain as a service on Azure, on their cloud platform, and they leverage Ethereum. So here, as I said, Ethereum is more like a platform as a service, and here you can really also just begin implementing your own blockchain applications on top of blockchain on Azure. So now let's begin with the discussion. How is all this related to middleware, and why is middleware a key success factor if you want to implement a blockchain project? So first, here's another nice article I read from RT Insights. It's why blockchain might be overhyped. And one of the key statements in this article is blockchain will be a workhorse, but behind the scenes. This is compared also to, for example, a public key infrastructure, which is also always just a workhorse behind the scenes. So the end user does never see it, but it's leveraged and used everywhere to realize security. And similarly, I would like to translate this statement for blockchain. And to me, I understand this as the following. Blockchain will not be important for most business users, but a key component for distributed infrastructure and middleware applications under the hood. So the end user will probably not see blockchain very often, but you will use it under the hood to get all of its advantages. And with that, think about why you might use middleware in combination with blockchain. There's a lot of things which you need to do. With blockchain, you have to integrate many different data sources in real time. You have the different blockchain clients, many backends, also legacy systems, and different cloud services. And all of them use different technologies, different standards, different communication protocols like asynchronous and synchronous communication, and therefore you have to integrate a lot of different services and applications when you want to realize a blockchain project. You need to think about things like gateway and API management for your blockchain APIs. You might also leverage different blockchains like Hyperledger and Ethereum, so we will not know what the future brings in blockchain frameworks. And another key is that you also want to correlate the events in real time of your blockchain and maybe also of other systems to get most added value out of this. And then, as I said, blockchain is also some kind of database in the end, and therefore you can leverage data discovery on your historical blockchain data to find new insights and patterns, which you can then use to improve your blockchain algorithms and implementations. Other key services are for identity and key management and crypto services. And therefore you see there's a lot of things you have to realize when you implement a blockchain project. And all these things listed here are in the end middleware features which you can leverage with some kind of middleware instead of realizing that by your own, because that would be a lot of effort, and therefore there's a lot of great middleware components available on the market for that. If you take a look at an architecture for blockchain and middleware combined, on the left side you see different blockchain networks. For example, here you can see that a blockchain network A could be implemented with Hyperledger, and you could have another blockchain network B with Ethereum, for example, or any other blockchain networks. And these blockchain networks have to work together and communicate with many other applications and with blockchain clients, and therefore you have to integrate all of that in real time via some kind of integration component or data access layer. And then what you also want to do is you want to use some kind of data discovery to find insights in this blockchain data. That's what you see here in pink. So here you see the data storage and your historical analysis, your visual analytics, your machine learning components, and where the data scientists can help. And therefore the data discovery part and analytics part can be used to find out new insights and patterns in your blockchain implementations. And then you can also use correlation of events with some kind of event processing or streaming analytics to correlate the different events of blockchains and other systems in real time. And all of that together brings in the end some kind of reference architecture, how you combine blockchains with integration, with analytics, and with real-time event correlation together to bring the most value out of your blockchain projects. And that's in the end how you see that middleware is a key success factor for realizing blockchain projects. If you use just blockchain in its own, you get much less value out of it. And therefore, this is the final slide, and this is talking a little bit about TIBCO, the company I work for, and how you could start with leveraging TIBCO middleware and blockchain. So in the end, this is just some proposals how you could start. So just spin up a blockchain service instance, for example, with IBM or Microsoft Cloud Services. Then you might play around with them, starting with their Hello World example. And then to leverage really the blockchain as a service, you could import these REST interfaces of the blockchain into your integration middleware to implement the first integration service. Might be an Hello World first and then integrate it with another system. That could be the first part. Or you can leverage streaming analytics to correlate different blockchain events. In the beginning, of course, you can start with one blockchain and correlate a few events and also visualize it with a live visualization in the live data mart. And you can take a look at the historical data of blockchain with visual analytics. And that might be then a more advanced step, you can of course also then apply machine learning and big data analytics to get even more value out of your data. Though these are just some proposals of how you can get started if you want to realize a blockchain project and also want to leverage middleware with that. As discussed, that I think is a key success factor for real-world blockchain projects. And with that, I'm at the end of my blockchain and middleware introduction. To summarize it, as you have seen, there's different blockchain frameworks available on the market. It's really way beyond financial transactions. It's for any kind of industry. You can innovate a lot with blockchain. And as discussed, middleware with integration, event correlation, and analytics is a key success factor for your blockchain projects. If you have any feedback, just come back to me. I would like to discuss with you your use cases or questions. You can contact me via email, Twitter, my website, or LinkedIn, and I would really be happy to hear from you. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.